Hello again, and welcome to Park Forgotten Disney. Here, we look at rides and attractions that were either never made, or were taken out and killed and murdered and mangled with and stuff. Today's attraction, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I have no other intro. That's all I'm going to say. I was just too bored to write an actual intro. To start things off, I will quickly talk about the ride's basis, what the ride was based on. Originally, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was a book by famed sci-fi author Jules Verne, who also wrote Journey to the Center of the Earth and Around the World in 80 Days. Then, in 1954, Walt Disney and director Richard Fleischer teamed up to create the commercial and critically successful Oscar-winning film with the same name as the book. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. The film now is considered one of Disney's best live-action films, and was so influential that, in 1971, on October 14th, just 13 days after the Magic Kingdom's opening, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea opened to guests as an attraction. However, the ride couldn't open on opening day, because of technical problems and the fact that the lagoon couldn't hold water. Nothing that conspiratorial, just some problems. However, technically, the ride, originally titled Submarine Voyage, opened on June 14th, 1959 at Disneyland. But after the attraction was also a critical and commercial success, the Imagineers decided to make a brand new and better version for Disney World. Also, they decided to name it after one of the best Disney films, so the ride was born. The ride vehicles were based on the Nautilus from the film, that were designed by Harper Goff. The ships were actually not real submarines, but just boats with seats below water level. Each one of the 40 guests would both have a porthole with a defogging ability, but that ability would rarely work, and, of course, a red leather seat. Where the guests would be inside the boat, the inside interior, it was made of pipes, bolts, and other metal panelings to give off a Victorian-esque steampunk style, but still in line with the Goff's designs for the film. And, in the top window, was a small speaker of voice actor Peter Renaday doing an impression of James Manson as Captain Nemo. The ships were manually controlled on an inverted V-elevated track. The basic hulls of the ship were made in Clearwater, Florida, and by the time they got to Disney World, they each weighed 40 tons. The ships, even though they were heavy, were still only a third of the original design size for the film. And while above the water, the ships were massively detailed, below water, the ship was not as much detailed, with a lot of key elements not being there. However, since the ride was about going underwater, there had to be some excavation. Since the park was already 15 feet above ground level, the attraction could be both below street level and on top soil. After digging, the crew began work on the sets. The scenic pieces were all made by Disney's Mappo division, where they made things like the coral and, of course, the infamous giant squid. Well, actually, there were 2 coral reefs and 2 giant squids, because everything was made in 2. So both sides of the boat could see the same things at the same time. Most of these items were made of either fiberglass, concrete, or silicone rubber. Also, the terrain, ice formations, and ancient ruins were all installed either on the floor of the lagoon or the ceiling of the main show building. And, so crew members could access the mechanisms that animate the ride's effects, a series of catwalks and bridges were installed within that warehouse. Unfortunately, this made the attraction one of the most expensive at Disney World, and one of the most heavily armed. And a lot of crew members, Imagineers, people at Disney, really didn't like the attraction as much as the people who were riding it did. The basic plot of the ride was about the guests traveling with Captain Nemo in the haunting Nautilus. On your trip, you see moray eels, lobsters, crabs, turtles, clams, and other fish. Over time, though, you encounter a storm, sending you to a grave of lost ships. After reaching the South Pole, you find the lost city of Atlantis, where you see a dragon, 2 exposed mermaids, and a bunch of gold, jewels, and other riches. Lastly, you see a giant squid attacking another smaller Nautilus. Then it starts attacking you, but luckily you escape the caves and the squid and make it back on the shore. The last scene was the squid, a tribute to the 1954's film's most famous scene, which is the giant squid. Here was a video of the ride in the best quality money could find, aka the best video I could find on the YouTube.
Stand by to dive. Diving stations. Dive. Dive. Down to the pool. Silence. Rebound diving plane. 3 degrees down. Passenger 10 fathoms.
This is Captain Nemo speaking. Welcome aboard the Nautilus. We are proceeding on a course that will take us on a voyage 20,000 leagues under the sea. En route we will pass beneath the polar ice cap, and then probe depths seldom seen by man. So make yourselves comfortable, but please remain seated at all times. You will see many familiar inhabitants of the undersea world. The great green sea turtles, for instance, are the reptilian patriarchs of the deep. These amphibious descendants of the dinosaur have changed little in the past 200 million years. Groupers, or giant sea bass, roam the coastal bottoms in search of food. The giant clam, obviously, is quite safe from such marine predators.
The fish world has always been considered a silent habitat, but with our sonar hydrophones, we have discovered that fish actually talk. Listen. Satellite ships. They are harvesting the abundance that nature has sown here beneath the sea. Kelp beds are cultivated, sea creatures corralled and protected from predators, just as terrestrial shepherds protect their flocks from ravenous wolves. Surface storm ahead, sir. Weather alert. All controls 8 degrees down. Hold her at 80 fathoms and proceed on course. The Nautilus can dive safely below the violence of ocean storms. Surface vessels are not so fortunate. Witness the evidence of their fate. The graveyard of lost ships. For ages, these rotting holds have kept their secret treasures, safeguarded by silent sentinels of the deep. Man-eating sharks, nature's most unpredictable predators of this.
In this region of the polar ice cap, you are witnessing a rare visual phenomenon. The aurora borealis above us. Take her deep. And keep an eye on the depth gauge. We have passed beneath the North Pole and are now descending into that region in deeper water where the sun has never penetrated. Here, in this realm of eternal darkness, nature has provided her creatures with their own eerie luminescence.
Warning light, sir. We've reached maximum depth limit.
Take her back up to 80 fathoms.
80 fathoms. Aye, aye.
There are limits beyond which man and his puny efforts cannot survive. We have almost exceeded those limits.
Unusual formation to port and starboard, sir.
Crumbling heaps of stone betray the hand of man. I believe we've made a startling discovery. These classic ruins could very well be the legendary lost continent of Atlantis. Some scholars theorize that a remarkable civilization was destroyed by a tremendous volcano. Others treat any concept of Atlantis as pure fantasy, along with legends of sea serpents and mermaids.
Beg your pardon, sir, but did you say sea serpents are mere fantasies?
Belay there, mate. Anyone in his right mind knows there's no such thing as a sea serpent or mermaids. Mr. Baxter, if you think you're seeing mermaids and sea monsters, you've been submerged too long.
Captain Nemo, sir. We're experiencing unusual turbulence. It sounds like the underwater volcano, sir.
By Neptune's flippers, this confirms it. That seething mountain still denies rest to the civilization it submerged thousands of generations ago. Helmsman, steer clear the tottering columns.
Aye, aye, sir.
Red alert!
Red alert. All hands to station.
Trim the tanks. Steady as she goes.
Joint speed, day. It's disabled a submarine, sir.
Good Lord! It's one of ours. Its hull has been crushed like an eggshell.
Another monster is attacking forward, sir.
Full repellent charge!
Repellent charge, aye, aye. Maximum voltage.
All ahead!
All ahead, aye, aye. You know that, sir, repellent.
Emergency maneuver. All engines. Stand by to surface.
Aye, aye.
Surface!
Surface. 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 Brace all taken, sir.
Proceed on course. All ahead.
All ahead.
Look up now. Station the maneuvering watch.
Aye, aye, sir. All hands to station.
Ladies and gentlemen, in just a few moments we will be docking at Vulcania, our home port. It has been a pleasure having you aboard the Nautilus on this memorable voyage that has taken us 20,000 leagues under the sea. Captain to bridge. Reduce speed and proceed to number 4 berth. Stand by to dock. Good. Aye, aye. All one berth. Stand by the mooring. Thank you for staying with us. Now, when the cabin lights come on, please stand by to disembark. Gather your belongings, take small children by the hand, and watch your step.
Unfortunately, even though it was one of the park's most popular attractions, As I said before, it was too expensive to maintain. So, on September 5th, 1994,
How was it formed?
Disney sadly
These and
announced
other questions about our watery planet
that
have intrigued man since the
there would be some repairs and that it would return someday.
As far as we know, the oceans have
2 years
existed
later,
for
it's
some
still closed.
4
Disney officially
billion
announced the
years.
finally closed forever.
And
So
for the
technically,
last
what I was building up to,
100 million years,
it was that
the sea has
on
been a
September
living,
5th, 1994,
dynamic world,
it closed.
shaping and
During the 2 years between 1994 and 1996, the ships would have stayed, then the water would have been flooded out, and some disturbing things would have happened. The next few minutes of this video will be just of the photos of what happened between these 2 years. Though I warn you, these are very disturbing. If you have been on the attraction, then you will be warned. Okay. Here they are. After the ride was completely closed, they refilled the pool, put a Triton statue in there, and renamed it Ariel's Grotto in 2004. 1 year later, in 2005, the pool was completely filled back in and renamed Pool's Playful Spot, where they had a cute little Easter egg of the Nautilus in a tree. Then, in 2010, Pool's Playful Spot closed, and now, the attraction called the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, the final attraction for the Fantasyland expansion, lays there. Hopefully, with another brilliant reference to 2000 Leagues Under the Sea. Also, the Nautilus ship vehicles used in the ride were carried and sent around the different parks. Like one in the Boneyard, the Backlot Tour in Hollywood Studios, next to some props from Star Wars and Pirates of the Caribbean. Also, the fiberglass top of one of the boats is behind Soren, along with the Jungle boat. Sadly, though, most of the other boats were given to scrap people to take the metal, and they were stripped down and buried in a landfill. Also, 2 of the ships went to Castaway Cay, the private island owned by Disney. They were put into snorkeling locations. One was unexplainably removed, and the second one remains there to this day, but is mainly destroyed from all the hurricanes. That's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I also don't have an ending! Wasting time so you get back. What's next on the list? Oh!
Beyond the sea, somewhere waiting for me, my lover stands on golden sands and watches the ships that go sailing.